This is how you get a modern pop punk sound. Anyone that knows me, it's going to come as no surprise that I'm a huge fan of pop punk. I've been a fan of the genre since the late 90s, and I really dove into it in the mid 2000s. Fast forward to today, I'm still a huge fan of the genre, but I've noticed in recent years that there are some trends that have changed with the sound and how producers are getting a modern pop punk sound. So today I want to talk about 3 things that I do in every pop punk session to help better set myself up to achieve a modern pop punk sound. Before I go any further, my name is Matt. Thank you for visiting the channel. I appreciate it. Please like this video if you enjoy this kind of content and subscribe. It goes a long way to helping us grow our audience. If you need help producing your next song or album, send me a message, leave me a comment, or click the link in my bio. The first thing that I notice is drums are tighter with less decay. The first thing I will do is go to the envelopes tab in whatever drum software I'm using, and I will lower the decay and hold time of the direct mics of the kick, snare, and toms. I feel this goes a very long way in making sure that drums aren't bleeding into each other. Usually with pop punk, you've got pretty up-tempo beats, and you don't want those drums bleeding into each other and getting in each other's way. The second thing I've noticed about modern pop punk drums is usually the snares are tuned a little lower than they used to be in years past. Whatever drum software I'm in, I will go to the snare, and in this case, I go to the Attributes tab in Modern and Massive 2, and you can see I've lowered the pitch of the snare. It's just a little over a semitone. It's not much, but it actually did go a long way in giving the snare more punch, giving it more body. And the third thing that I noticed with modern pop punk drums is that drum mixes are typically more shell-driven rather than cymbal and overhead-driven. So I went into the Mixer tab of Modern and Massive. I scrolled over to the overheads and rooms, and I brought them down ever so slightly. This overhead mic was pushed just a little bit over 0, so I brought it to unity. And the rest of the room mics I brought down maybe a decibel or 2, so not much. From there, I did a little bit of mixing to help further accentuate the changes I made with the drums. The first processor is Andrew Wade Bus Glue Drums. I'm just using the punch module and a little bit of transient shaper to add a little more attack. From there, I use the Canvas Audio Oak Dynamic Tone Shaper, which is a fantastic plugin. It's kind of an all-in-one. It's compression. You can add body, you can add attack. You can see I've made a few little changes here and there. You can add saturation. I've not added saturation just yet. To add a little more thickness to the drums, I went ahead and boosted and attenuated the low end using Subtech, also from Canvas Audio. And then I ended it all with my tried and true multiband saturation technique. So here's what the drums sound like with processing and then without. You can see all very small moves, but very intentional moves to help bring out the fullness and thickness of the drums. The next element that I focus on to get a modern pop punk tone is the bass guitar. Now, it's no secret and it's nothing new that you should use a picked bass of some type with either a mild amount or a moderate amount of overdrive on it. You could go with the tried and true Rickenbacker. You could use a P bass. I love this Dingwall sound. It's got a great pick tone. The real trick with bass guitar is focusing in on adding a sine wave sub layer with the bass guitar. One thing I notice in modern pop punk productions is that the bass guitar in the low end is incredibly thick and it's incredibly consistent. So the way I achieve that is duplicate the bass guitar performance. I will typically start with this Billie Eilish Bass 1 preset. And then with this sub bass, you want to make sure that you're low passing everything from about 50, 60 hertz and up. Likewise with the bass guitar, I will typically roll off using a high pass filter everything 50 or 60 hertz and down. Low passing the sub at 50 hertz and high passing the bass guitar at 50 hertz will ensure that the sub frequencies of your bass guitars are not clashing and conflicting, and that you're only getting the aspect of the sub sine wave that you want, which is thick low end that stays super consistent. Let me play this bass guitar in solo with the sub, and then I will unsolo the sub so you can hear just the bass guitar by itself. A little bit goes a long way with a sub bass like this, so blend in judiciously. The third element of modern day pop punk that I noticed that's different from years past is the guitars. While they still have a lot of bite and they are still very in your face, they are smoother and thicker. The 2 tones I usually reach for when producing modern pop punk are the Bogren Digital Amp Knob Rev C and the Bogren Digital Amp Knob 5169, which is a take on the traditional block letter 5150 amp. Both tones sound great. they usually fall right in. The trick to getting the sound that I'm looking for with modern pop punk rhythm guitars is with the EQ. I'm cutting with low shelf right around 80 to 100 hertz. I'm doing a 2K cut because 2K tends to build up with guitars. I'm notching a couple of resonant frequencies in the upper mid-range, and then I'm giving a high shelf just to bring back some of that bite that I'm losing. These cuts and these notches go a long way to smooth out the sound. This one boost down here is really the deciding factor with giving these guitars the thickness and the smoothness that I'm looking for. Let me play these guitars with and without the EQ so you can hear what's going on. This one EQ is going a long way to sculpt the tone. They're pretty modest EQ moves. The notches are a little aggressive, but that's to be expected with resonant tones in the upper mids. Let me play this entire section of the song so you can hear just how all these instruments work together. Drums are tight, they're big, they're punchy. The bass still has great tone, but it's got that thickness that's layered in with it. And then the guitars sound big, they sound aggressive, but they also sound smooth and thick. There are clearly more aspects that go into achieving a modern day pop punk sound, but I feel like if you lock in on these three key areas, you'll be well on your way to getting that modern pop punk sound. Let me know in the comments if these three techniques help modernize your next pop punk production. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video.